My name is Dr. Carole Lieberman. I'm a forensic psychiatrist and trial expert witness. I have been studying the tragic Idaho 4 case since before they arrested Bryan Kohberger. On November 13th, 2022, Bryan Kohberger stealthily went into a house off the campus of the University of Idaho, where he then allegedly killed 4 students. Starting from the beginning, there were red flags that led up to this murder that should have been noticed beforehand. First of all, he was a very awkward child. That is part of the reason why he had such trouble when he was in middle school asking girls to date him. When he was in middle school, he had a crush on a blonde cheerleader who looked very much like Kaylee Gonsalves, and she refused to date him. This continued throughout his life. I mean, even more recently, when he would go into a bar in Pennsylvania, they had a notation next to his name that to warn the female staff that he was a bit strange. The important part and the seed of these murders really started in junior high school when he was rejected, and continued because he became an incel. An incel is a young man who has a hatred, deep hatred towards women because they feel that have been spurned by them. The investigators said it was the bloodiest crime scene they had ever seen. And it was a personal crime scene. It was done by a knife, which is a very personal way of killing, which speaks of the intense hatred that the murderer had for the victims. And then they described the victims as being these 4 very attractive, very popular, very studious students with a good future ahead of them. These perfect girls and boys, men and women. They call them the girl Stacys and the men Chad. And that is who he killed, allegedly. You know, they were people who he had been attracted to before the crime, ever since he got to Washington and started going on the University of Idaho campus. In particular, Kaylee, because she, again, resembled his first love, the first rejection that he got when he was younger. It has been reported that he stalked, and her friends even tried to walk behind her so that they would protect her. They told this to someone who worked at one of the stores that they went into. Next in line, he studied in college, he studied psychology. And I think he was trying to figure out what was wrong with himself. You know, that he really felt out of it. He really felt disconnected from the world and really awkward. And then he got a BA and a master's in criminal justice. So, you know, you can see the trajectory. First, he gets his heart broken in middle school. He starts developing his rage towards women. Then he takes psychology. Then he takes criminal justice. And he went to Washington to pursue his doctoral studies in criminology. And he wanted to become, in my opinion, one of the famous killers that he read about in his criminology courses. He wanted to be one of the ones that future students would read about. Then in 2020, he wrote an essay for one of his classes, How to Cover Your Tracks at a Crime Scene. And so he wrote about how to wear fiber-free clothing, gloves and overalls and boots and so on, to not leave your DNA and not leave your fingerprints. Well, he must not have paid attention to his own essay very well, because in fact he did leave DNA on the knife sheath that he used. You know, but it's one thing to learn about things that you're supposed to do in criminology classes, and it's another thing when you're at the crime scene and you're panicking and only have a certain amount of time to commit the crime. I mean, 4 deaths, 4 murders in a very short amount of time. They're thinking 15 minutes. This is significant because the prosecutors will use the fact that he studied this, how to not leave evidence at a crime scene, as an explanation for why there wasn't more evidence at the crime scene. On January 10th, 2022, he bought a mask at Dick's Sporting Goods in Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, he didn't really either buy a big enough mask or didn't pay attention when he was wearing it, or probably, when he was committing the crime, it kind of came loose. And you were able to see his bushy eyebrows. And that was noticed by the one witness who saw him walk out of the house. And his bushy eyebrows are a very distinctive trait. Months before the murder, he bought a K-bar knife through Amazon. And of course, that was easily traced through his purchases on Amazon. And it is a K-bar sheath that he left at the crime scene that had his DNA on it. Jury selection is set to begin in July of 2025, and the trial itself is set to begin on August 11th, 2025. He is facing the death penalty.